Hi guys, it's Sunday, May 9, 2021. Warming up for some orbiting exercises with weight plates today. This is an alternative to the kettlebell that I used the other day. So it's a 10-pound plate I'm starting with, and I'm just warming up the shoulder blades and rotator cuff. Two things we're trying to strive for is not moving the head as we do this, and trying to keep the plate or the kettlebell, whatever you're using, you want to try to keep that below the top of your head. And as I'm going around behind me, I'm trying to really get that bell as much behind me as I can without compensating with changing my chest or pelvic angles. Okay, so that's the 10-pound. Now we're doing the same thing with a 25-pounder, trying to maintain similar standards. This is where the anti-rotational component is involved, as we're trying not to move the head and keeping the weight underneath the top of the dome of your head. That bell is leaning really far outside your base. It's pulling you in whatever direction it's in, and that's where the obliques and other midsection and core musculature are going to help maintain your spinal position, hopefully. Okay, so now we're moving up to a 45-pound plate. A few caveats here. I don't recommend going heavy with this exercise. For a lot of you, this might be heavy, and I'm just showing. I know many of you will be curious, so I'm demonstrating with a big plate, but it is much better to start with a 10-pound to 25-pounder and just make sure that you're able to do that without moving your head and keeping the weight below the top of your head. That's real important before you move to heavier. Okay, so now we're back to a 10-pound plate, but gonna add just a little bit of a side swing to that. And with that, then we'll start decelerating with a half squat. So as the bell comes around and you go into that drop right around in front of the chest, you just boom. And combining that half squat with the side swing, it greatly enhances your deceleration of the weight, as well as it improves your control. So just kind of going nice and slow. By the way, as that bell drops from the midline, you want to actually have it wedge outwards and away from your leg for obvious reasons. I do a lot of reps with a 10-pounder. I want to make sure that I'm sequencing this movement smoothly. So even under the duress of fatigue or whatever, I'm still able to not hit myself in the knee. That is a real and considerable risk with this exercise, but hasn't happened to me yet, and hopefully it won't happen to you if you decide to try this. Okay, now we got the 25-pounder. We're going to be, making sure we're really dialed in with the 10-pounder first before we go to this, because if this gets on your knee or any part of you, obviously that's going to suck. So we're just moving around with this a little, but at this weight, you now have the heft, and on that drop, you get a better rhythm. And once again, I don't really recommend, even for strong people, I don't recommend going above 25 pounds when you're just learning this, and you'll actually get more volume and time under tension with this weight rather than just trying to go heavy. This is not a heavyweight exercise. It is much better to move smoothly and fluidly and safely with a weight that you feel very confident with. So, and here we're exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. That's called anatomical breathing. There's a good reason for that. I am not going to do that. Oh, actually I am. I'm sorry. I'm not doing the lunge with the 45, but the squat orbit we can use the big plate on. Do not use the big plate for the lunge version that's coming up. Number one, it's not practical. these plates are a little too tall once you drop back into a squat, or even if I was to descend into a deeper squat or lunge, that plate will be eating the floor in no time, and that's, at the very least, it's distracting if not dangerous. But in the squat variation, once again, this is more for demonstration purposes than it is for or meant as a recommendation, because this is kind of on the heavy side. Once again, really important that from the midline you're wedging or angling the bell outwards away from your leg. You're not just doing a straight linear swing right next to yourself. So if you were to trace the path of this weight plate, it would be actually making more of a triangular path where it meets at the midline. Important to keep a tall chest, to hinge your hips back. Once the bell or the weight drops, do not hinge at the knees forward. First joint to hinge should be at the hips, and then any additional deceleration will be taken up by the knees. But you want to have a real tall chest on this at all times, very springy on that drop. You have to tense up a lot more than you can see in this video in order to take the drop on these weights and still have them transition back upwards without displacing you too much. Okay, so we're at a 25 okay, so this is warming up the reverse lunge orbit. You saw me kind of get thrown off the track there, and I think that happens again. No, okay. The first several are going to be like that. Expect that. On the drop, so once you've done your orbit, you've come around on this drop, I'm focusing on my right leg, and on here, I'm focusing on the left leg. So whatever side that weight is dropping on, you're controlling that hemisphere of your body, and you're not really, I try not to focus too much on the weight. Once I have it wedging away from my leg in the side swing, I focus on the posture of my chest on that respective side. So I'm doing another set. This was kind of the main event. This is an excellent exercise, especially if you're I shouldn't say a fighter. This is good for anybody that has arms and legs and does anything. You have the front to back, or rather sagittal movement in the reverse lunge, while you're maintaining kind of a transverse gyroscope on top of that. I like to make a comparison to like a tank. You want very strong front to back action on the treads of the tank, but you want that tank to be able to turn its turret and shift on the fly while you're in motion. So this movement will build a lot of proprioception and body awareness that makes you hard to knock down. And then after that, I'm just coming back with one more set on the 45-pound squat orbit. Once again, I do not recommend, in fact, I discourage using this for the lunge. Anyway, we're done. Thanks for watching, you guys. Let me know if you have any questions, and much aloha. Bye-bye.